Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back to the Fumble Live. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are getting into some of the drama that went down between KD and Scottie Pippen. We're also talking about some shade that Kawhi is getting based on where he sat for the Clippers game. And then we're getting into some news about Chris Paul. But before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to our channel, tap the bell for notifications, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. Here's the Fumble Squad. I'm Devin Howard. You guys can find me on Instagram as @Devin Howard, and I want you all to give Kevin a warm welcome. Kevin, introduce yourself. Tell us where we can follow you on social media.
Fantastic. Well, first and foremost, Devin, it's a pleasure to come full circle now with the Fumble, now sitting with you today. My name is Kevin Pryor. You can reach me on all portals, Twitter, Instagram at 950Kev.
950 Kev, you guys. Go ahead and follow him. You guys have seen him in the chat. He's been a very important person in all of the conversations that we have on our live show. And it's so nice, and we're so grateful for him to come on and give both Jackie and I a day off in consecutive Fridays, actually. You allowed me to have the day off when I was in Austin, and now Jackie's taken a much needed day off. So we appreciate you so much, Kevin. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
I want to quickly get into a little bit of a rapid fire question here because I'm just getting to know you on a personal level. I know we've gone back and forth in the chat and stuff, but this is our first time actually talking to each other. So,
Tay-to-tay.
Yeah, so quick little rapid fire question. First, I think I already know the answer to this, but for those of you in the chat who don't know Kevin yet, what is your favorite NBA team?
Oh, you know I bleed blue and orange, New York Knicks all day.
All right, Nick. So this is a good year for you. Very exciting. But he wants everybody to know that he was not as crazy and ratchet as the Knicks fans that we have talked about at Madison Square Garden. So do not.
Good Knicks fans do exist.
Yes, the normal ones are out there. Okay, who is your NFL team?
You know what, Devin? Because I'm a big Fumble fan, you said you never met one of these fans, and this is the first. I am a Jet fan. I blame my father, rest his soul, but I'm a Jet fan, and I can't change my fandom. Gang green.
It's okay. I'm in the same boat being a Chargers fan. A lot of the people that I grew up with in San Diego are shocked that I still support them because there's a lot of negativity there after they moved to LA, but I am a Chargers fan, so we both are fans of slightly unpopular teams. Okay, next question. Who's the GOAT, Michael Jordan or LeBron? This is a big one.
Well, you know what? Let me get my voice. Sometimes I see that he is me. Michael Jordan's the GOAT. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. LeBron James is a phenomenal athlete, and in my radio circles, they even call me LeBron James at a radio game. So I get it. LeBron is fantastic, checks all the boxes. But when it comes to, like, GOAT status, and it's hard for me to go against Michael Jeffrey Jordan. I mean, Jackie got out of it in her, with challenge accepted with her bet. But Michael Jordan is the GOAT, and that's all I got. I'm sorry.
Wow.
No, I'm not sorry.
We could have an hour-long show just about that alone, so I'm not even going to try and challenge it right now because it's going to be way too long. So let's forget that. Okay, so now for this NBA season, who is winning the championship?
Well, I think I mentioned it in the chat. I think the Phoenix Suns, even though I know they had a tough loss last night, and with the return of CP3 and Campaign getting hurt, I still think they have that momentum. I like what I see in Phoenix. I know, like I said, every team this year has a mass unit, and Phoenix is now no different. Cam gets hurt. Devin Booker is dealing with a broken nose, so it's going to happen. A war of attrition as always. But I like Phoenix picking up that Larry O'Brien trophy at the end of the year.
Wow, okay. Well, I can't wait to see what happens and see if you are right with that. And then finally, the last question that I have for you, who are your top 3 players in the league right now? NBA league.
Wow. Okay. Well, you know what? I know you're a Laker fan, so I'm going to start with LeBron. LeBron is right now the best player. He has not given up that throne. LBJ is still, top of the food chain. I think, again, I got to go with Brooklyn's finest right now. Kevin Durant is number 2. Phenomenal Game 7, didn't get it quite done. And really, number 3, it's a log jam there. At one time, I might have said last year, if you asked me this question, I might have said AD. But right now, you know what? at number 3, I don't even know where to go. I would have to, maybe I would. I don't know. I can't even give a number 3. I would say Kawhi, but I'm not really saying Kawhi. So I'm gonna hold number 3 and leave that to a plethora of athletes, because there really is. It's a big drop off to me when it comes to that echelon after 1, 2. There's a lot of great players, Luka and all those guys, but I can't put them at 3.
I can understand that. I definitely agree with 1 and 2. I think that if you're listing top 3 players in the league and LeBron and KD aren't in there, you're doing something wrong. You can't deny that fact. And also,
you're not watching the NBA.
Right, you're just not watching. You're just not paying attention to basketball, because those two are definitely, they just reign supreme. We're actually going to be getting into some KD news, because, if you're ever going to come for KD in any way, shape, or form, you have to be ready for his Twitter fingers to get right at it. So let's get into our first need-to-know news story, because like I said, KD is getting up to his usual stuff. He is clapping back at all of the haters, and this time that hater is Scottie Pippen. So KD responded to Scottie's critique about KD's playing style. He said, so Scottie Pippen said, quote, KD, as great as his offense was, it turned out to be his worst enemy because he didn't know how to play team basketball. He kept trying to go punch for punch. Right here you can see KD's tweet, which we're actually going to be getting into a little bit later. So Leo, if you want to take that off the screen, you absolutely can. And then Scottie also reiterated how the net star hasn't ever surpassed LeBron James. He said, quote, have you ever seen LeBron take a shot like that? He ain't going to take a shot like that. It's going to be smarter. LeBron would have figured out how to beat them and wouldn't have been exhausted, and he may not have taken the last shot. LeBron ain't KD, and KD ain't LeBron. And then Scottie also said that if LeBron had gone up against the Bucks, he would have found a way to win no matter what, and KD just fell short and wasn't able to do that. It's an interesting take and slightly harsh, considering KD did just come off of a fabulous 7-game series. He basically carried the Nets the entire time. He put up 48 points in Game 7, and then he also accidentally stepped on the line during what would have been that game-winning three-pointer, which is when the Nets ended up kind of succumbing to the Bucks in overtime. That being said, KD is not LeBron James, and I know that they're kind of always neck and neck for like who's the greatest player in the league or whatever, but they don't have the same mentality. They're so different when it comes to how they play. So for Scottie to come out and say this in his article, it wasn't even really necessary. It felt kind of just like, what was the point in even bringing LeBron up in this conversation? So KD, of course, had to respond to all of the slander. So Leo, let's get that first tweet up there. He wrote, didn't the great Scottie Pippen refuse to go in the game for the last second shot because he was in his feelings? His coach drew up the play for a better shooter. So he is referencing Game 3 in the 1994 postseason series between the Bulls and the Knicks. Scottie sat out for the last play of the game because it wasn't drawn up for him. And even with that being the case, Tony Kukoc hit the game winner and kept the series alive for Chicago. So in other words, Scottie just didn't step in and stand up for his teammates and get involved when they needed him to beat an opponent, because the game wasn't, the play wasn't set up in his favor. Then KD sent up another tweet that said, this guy Scott also wanted to enjoy his summer, so he chose to rehab during the season. LOL, yo, Scottie Pippen, they followed Phil, not you. So typical KD fashion to clap back at a hater. Sometimes I think it would be best if he just let these things roll off. But then again, I love having the drama to talk about, so I don't mind that KD is one to actively go against the trolls. But do you think that Scottie's claim that LeBron would have found a way to win was a bit of a stretch? Can we really make that kind of assumption?
Well, you know what, Devin? Let's break it down. Scottie is writing a book. So at this point, he's trying to make book sales, right? So we get that, and I understand that. But he wasn't necessarily completely wrong. If LeBron had a toe on the line, they would have killed him. The Skip Baylesses of the world, they would say, "Oh, Michael Jordan would have known to step a foot back." So you can't ask somebody to be the best on the planet, the best at what they do, and not take a little bit of criticism. Now, that's not to take nothing away from KD. He played a phenomenal game. You're right; they are two different players, but and KD has not been asked to do what LeBron does. But again, Scotty's words were like, "Look, he mentioned, and I quote." He doesn't have the same thing LeBron has. And I think that's kind of true because LeBron is taking guys like Tristan Thompson, Gunas Ilgauskas, J.R. Smith, Mr. Weed Caruso, and he's made these guys rich. He's made these guys better players. KD has not done that. Not maybe KD's fault because he's played on teams, especially over the last several years with Golden State and in Brooklyn, where he didn't have to have that belt. So again, I'm not knocking Scottie for that. But one thing I will say, if you're going to come for KD, you better be ready because KD's going to punch back. And what he said about Scottie was spot on. I remember those games. Scottie, again, did not come out in that game against the Knicks. It was against my Knicks in the playoffs. Again, and Scottie did rehab, and I think Michael talked about it in The Last Dance. So again, Scottie, if you're gonna live in those stones, don't live in a glass house because one thing we know, KD does his homework and he will come a-calling.
He definitely does do his homework. He is always ready to clap back. Sometimes his clapbacks are a little bit weak, but in this case, I think they were actually pretty strong.
I respect him in this one too.
I do too, yeah. And I feel like for Scottie to come out right after this phenomenal run that KD had, where he really did everything that he possibly could for the Nets, I think it was a little weird for Scottie to even have these sorts of criticisms and comparisons, even if they are based in fact and truth, because I will agree that LeBron is obviously the better player when it comes to LeBron and KD, but it just felt unnecessary. But speaking of the clapbacks, do you think that a lot of the times it is better for KD to just let his work on the court speak for him rather than clapping back at the haters? I mean, after all, like I've said a couple times in this segment so far, he just had this amazing run. We saw KD for what he could do. Is it really necessary for him to come out there and have something to say to everybody that throws shade his way?
I think it would be great if he didn't clap back, Devin. But this is who Kevin Durant is. So this is who he is. And some great athletes, great performers, whoever, they need to find something. And now we might look back from the Raptors and go like, oh, come on, you don't need to do that. You're 6'11". You got a wingspan like an eagle. You don't need to do that. You're a great athlete. But something in his mental makeup, he needs to say things. KD goes after 15-year-olds that are just, talking on Twitter. So obviously it's just who he is. And, I come from a world if it's not broke, don't fix it. I used to be against him speaking, but at this point, speak away. If you're going to, play like you played the last playoff series, then keep talking, man.
Yeah, and this time we actually like what he had to say. Okay, now my final question for this story before we move on to our next update. I wonder if this narrative would have been entirely different had KD's foot not been on the line for that potentially game-winning three-pointer. Like, would we even be talking about KD and his legacy and how it relates to LeBron James had that not happened?
Well, I think Scottie would have found a couple other things. He talked about Ben Simmons and a few other guys, so he wouldn't be able to talk about KD. Again, like I said, Scottie's trying to sell a book and he's trying to, build hype. I don't like it, but, being in media, I understand it. KD has to realize that. KD took his shots back, and I think it should be over. But, yeah, you're right. If KD has, a half an inch smaller shoe, which he should be wearing because he says he wears a bigger shoe, this is a non-issue, and Scottie's talking about Ben Simmons. I think Ben probably happy he missed that shot, KD, because it would be all the pressure would be on him.
Yeah, Ben's name has been slandered a lot, though. In the headlines, he hasn't been spared very much at all. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Clippers. So on Thursday night, the Clippers stepped back on the floor for Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals. And, of course, Kawhi was not able to be there with him. He's missed both the first and the second game in their series against the Suns. And then actually heading into Game 3, Ty Lue was asked about Kawhi's availability moving forward. And he said that he didn't have any idea as to when Kawhi would be available. And based on this photo that we're going to be showing you right now, it sort of seems like Kawhi is just getting comfortable not being out there. So he was at the game, but he wasn't sitting on the bench with his teammates. Instead, he was sitting in a suite with his family. This is, it's a cute picture. I like to see his son on his lap, but a lot of people had a lot of criticism about this. Let's get some of those tweets up there, Leo, because I know there's a lot of people were saying like, damn, that's awkward. Another tweet coming up. Bro thinks sitting on the bench is more important than spending time with your son. This was in response to somebody criticizing Kawhi for sitting with his family. If this was LeBron, we'd have a whole segment on whether or not this is an indication that he's not a team player. Another tweet, LOL, my guy Kawhi up there in the suite watching his team with his kids. Love it. So there were some people that were happy with it. Kawhi sitting in a suite with his family is so cute, to be honest. I think it's kind of cute too. Why is Kawhi sitting in a suite and not on the bench with his team? Couple other tweets here. This might be the first time I've seen an injured player not on the bench with the squad. And this person writes, my exact thought, why is Kawhi in a suite at home when his team is on the floor playing? True leader right there. Another tweet, LMAO, Kawhi doesn't even F with his teammates. He at the game in a suite. I mean, there are so many of these kinds of tweets. Everybody going to pretend that it's okay for Kawhi to be in a box suite when his team is playing at home. I think there's a couple more. Terrence Ross says, damn, they let Kawhi sit in the suites. Sheesh. And then Rachel Nichols had some information for everybody. She said, Kawhi Leonard is in a suite with his family tonight, but I'm told that as he's done that several times since hurting his knee. He went down to the locker room at halftime to offer advice on what he was seeing / give his support. Kevin, let's break this down. Is it a bad look for Kawhi to be sitting in the suite with his family instead of on the bench? What's your take on that?
It's a totally bad look, and this is why I couldn't make Kawhi Leonard my top 3 when you asked me that earlier. Again, your team is down 0-2. You came to LA. You're trying to dethrone the king of LA. You came out with billboards and keychains talking about I'm the star. Now, again, injuries happen. We understand that. And I understand Kawhi's probably not the vocal leader that people want him to be. But again, I just think it's a bad look. There was a picture on Twitter of somebody taking a snap of Kawhi. And he ducked back because he didn't want people to see him. I think, again, listen, this is the playoffs. You're playing for a championship. I don't foresee him playing again. This is what this tells me, that he's done for 2021. Like, see you this fall, and then we'll see what happens with all that conversation. But it's not a bad look. Ask the San Antonio Spurs how they feel about Kawhi Leonard just kind of sitting in press and suites and media boxes and just not on the court. Again, it's not a great look. I don't like the optics. I understand what Rachel Nichols is saying, but they already pushed away from the floor, so it's not like if he sat 3-4 rows back, he's worried about somebody trampling on his knee. I don't like it personally.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like whenever we look at the Clippers and whenever we're talking about how they work together as a team, Kawhi, they always seem to make allowances for Kawhi. And he is the team's superstar, but he doesn't have that vocal leadership style that the team really needs. And that's a criticism that Jackie and I have for the Clippers all the time. As you know, Kawhi needs to either be paired with a co-star who's willing to speak up or learn how to do that himself. But what we see a lot with the Clippers is that, Kawhi is allowed to live in San Diego, and then he's 2 hours late, or, driving 2 hours from San Diego, and he's late for practice or he's late for flights. And now he's injured, and instead of sitting on the bench, he's sitting in the suite. I'm not super mad at him for sitting with his family. I think it's actually, for him personally, it's kind of a good look to see him as a family guy. But when you look at it as the team as a whole, especially based on all of the rumors that we've heard about Kawhi and his potential lack of commitment and loyalty to the Clippers, it just kind of makes me think that this is definitely an indication that there's chemistry issues behind the scenes, even if he is going into the locker room at halftime to give advice and show support. Do you also agree that this shows signs of that kind of lack of chemistry and that lack of loyalty that he might have for his teammates?
It's Groundhog's Day to me, Devin. Again, like I said, when you look what happened in San Antonio, when he distanced himself from that team, I just don't like the optics. What is he going in the locker room for? He doesn't talk anyway. He wants to say, just keep rebounding, play great defense. What is he going to say? The leader of that team is Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson, and while those guys are great players, they should not be the leaders. They're good players, but they're not the guys. Paul George, he's a little bit more vocal than Kawhi. But, the Cyborg's supposed to be the guy. And again, while Ty Lue done a phenomenal job, phenomenal job with the Clippers. I put him in my top 3 right now of coaches. I think Kawhi, I need more. Uncle Dennis and the family will be just fine in the suite by themselves. I'm sure they'd be well taken care of. He don't have to be the family guy at the arena at Staples. Be the family guy at the Palatial State in San Diego. I need you on the floor because we're on a 2-0 hole. And if they don't win last night, season's over.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it would have been a good boost to the team's morale if Kawhi had been there with them, sitting in the trenches with them and showing his support from the sidelines. So yeah, it isn't the best look. In the chat, Arali says the Claw is such a diva. My Glock says y'all are too deep in Leonard for no reason. I don't think this is a no reason kind of thing.
No.
I mean, he's physically distancing himself from his teammates at a very pivotal time in the postseason. Like, this is the time when he needs to be right there on the floor with them. So I don't think we're getting too deep into Kawhi here. Someone else said, Kevin L. Lang said Kawhi should have been on the bench. That was lame, my 2 cents. And Richard says, I don't care if he's on the bench or not. What's the point of being on the bench? It's just to be there and to be, to cheer your teammates on, to be right kind of in the middle of the action as much as you can be when you are injured. So I don't know. It's interesting to me. Do you anticipate that Kawhi is going to be seeking a new team in the offseason?
Well, you know what? All systems show that, Devin. Again, he built this team. They moved heaven and high water to get the people he wanted. They got Paul George. They got rid of Doc. I don't know what else he wants, but it seems that way. And again, this distance, again, where there's smoke, there's fire. I think that, he might be. I'm not sure. I mean, again, don't get me wrong, because if we had this conversation in several months and he was in New York, I'd probably go Kawhi, go. But as just somebody speaking just on pure team and chemistry, it just doesn't fit for me. And he doesn't get a pass for that. And that's why, again, I think, again, when it comes to being a great athlete, it's great talent, physical attributes matter, but you got to have a team concept and you got to have in your mind, not go play box or go play tennis or golf. This is a team sport and it's bigger than just one individual. Totally.
And then there's somebody in the chat, K-Dog says, extroverts will never understand introverts. Honey, I am an introvert. I am like the typical introvert. I definitely understand it. But in this kind of situation, you have to be able to, even if he's sitting silently on the sidelines, it's just, you got to be there sitting on the bench watching your team. It's not about extroversion or introversion. That's a silly comment, K-Dog. Come on. It's not what this is about. Jeez. Okay, let's get into the next conversation.
Breathe, Devin. Let him be.
Just hate it when people get too off topic in the chat. This is not about what your social style is. Kawhi is obviously an introvert. We know that about him, but that doesn't mean he can't sit there on the bench. That's dumb. Is he an introvert on payday?
Is he an introvert on payday? No, I don't think so, KD.
Yeah. Probably not. Okay, let's talk about Chris Paul. Okay, so Chris Paul was able to come back from his absence from the COVID-19 positive test. And an interesting conversation that came out of this was the effect that he has on the pace of the game. He runs the plays a little slower, and this time it actually didn't help the Suns. But the first 2 games without him had an entirely different look and pace to them. It's cool because when you look at Chris Paul and how he's been able to transform the team was good before, but his veteran leadership and his experience has really helped elevate the team and bring them up to this level that they weren't able to achieve. But then now with him back on the floor, it looked a little bit different. Do you feel like it's crazy to say that Chris Paul affected the loss? What was your thought on that?
I love you, Devin, but yes, it is crazy. Again, they would not be in this position without Chris Paul. This is the style of play they played all year. This is their leader. This is their emotional spark plug. We just mentioned how Kawhi isn't. This is the opposite with Chris Paul. The first 2 games, they speed up the pace, obviously. They had to compensate without their star. They speed up the pace. Cam Payne did his thing. Cam Payne goes down last night. So obviously Chris has got to play the game Chris has got to play, not to mention being away from the team for over, I think 11 days. He's got to get his legs back. So Again, I picked Phoenix to win the championship, and I'm not sliding away from that. They'll get their things together. They'll make an adjustment. The Clippers were a desperate team last night. Pat Bev, if you threw a bone on the court, he would have grabbed it. They were a desperate team. They did what they had to do to hold serve. But as for Chris Paul, no, I'm not going to say that. It's amazing how with sports we go from one extreme to the next. How we can just say a week ago this man was the MVP, and all of a sudden now we're like, no, maybe Chris should have came off the bench. No, I don't buy it. They just got outplayed last night by a hungry team, and we'll see what happens in Game 4.
Really quickly, I want to shout out Donnie for the $5 donation. Thank you for that. He has a comment about our Kawhi conversation that we just had. He said Kawhi needs to go link with Luka. He's a vocal leader already. Yeah, I mean, Luka is a lot more vocal than Kawhi is. I think Kawhi just needs to be paired with somebody like that, and then it could really be a dynamic situation for him. So that is, but that's a whole different conversation. Now we are on Chris Paul. But yeah, I think what you said, Kevin, is really important because Chris Paul is the reason. I mean, Chris Paul paired with Devin Booker is the reason the Suns have been able to get where they are right now. So yes, he's been out for a while, and this was the team's first loss after 9 consecutive wins. So that's actually pretty crazy too. But I'm not ready to say, oh, it's CP3's fault. That's like
that's blasphemy. Yeah, that's blasphemy.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense at all. I think they just are trying to kind of get their sea legs back. It's going to take a little bit of time for them to gel, and I think that we'll see that happen. But, after he was gone for quite a while, they kind of had to make do without him. And yes, they were successful, but now having the addition of him back on the floor with them, it's just going to change the dynamic for a second. But I have no doubt that they're going to be able to come back and look like the team they were before CP3 had to go on that health and the health protocol isolation period. Okay, so
I'm confused by that too, Devin.
What'd you say?
I'm confused by that too, the health protocol. He's doing TikTok videos, but I digress.
Well, if he's feeling healthy, I guess a TikTok video is easy to do. Let's move on. Let's get into the post-up, and it's going to be a continuation of the same conversation. So time for the post-up. All right, let's talk about Devin Booker. Okay, so as we talked about earlier in the week, D-Book's nose looked insane and was broken in 3 places, and doctors had to reset it. I cannot imagine the pain that he must have been feeling during all of that. Like, it makes me nauseous just to think about it. And he had to wear a mask for Game 3, and when asked about it, look at him here. Like, we have seen players wear masks like this. In fact, Kobe has worn a mask like this before. So it's kind of interesting right after Stephen A. Smith made that comment about Devin Booker being the next Kobe Bryant, and then he shows up in a mask like this. But D-Book was asked about how this might limit his peripheral vision, and he told Rachel Nichols, quote, "All I need to see is the basket." But he did not play as well as he normally does. In fact, this was a pretty low game for him. He scored 15 points in 40 minutes of playing time, and a lot of people think that it's because of the mask. Like I mentioned before, this is the first loss for the Suns after 9 consecutive wins. D-Book did say he could see fine, but he had a pretty terrible shooting night. Leo, let's get into some of those reactions. This person says he played so bad. Another person wrote, oh yeah, then there's this one. This is the other one I had to show you guys. Did you watch The Office, Kevin?
I'm a big fan of The Office, yeah. That's savage. That's savage.
He totally looked like that, though. It's so funny. He looked like Dwight Schrute. I love that. So what's your take on this? Do you think that D-Book could blame the mask for his poor playing night, or do you think that he's maybe just kind of getting a little tuckered out after working so hard?
No, I think the mask is a percentage of it. I think Pat Bev. I mean, listen, you got to give credit where credit is due. Pat Beverly played Devin Booker extremely hard last night. Actually, over the last 2 games, Pat Bev has been in his shirt, and I think, and to an extent, it's bothered Devin Booker. I think Devin is now thinking about that, and having a broken nose certainly doesn't help when you got a guy who's constantly an inch away from your face. So I think again it's a combination of both. Devin will be fine. I think again, a day of rest will help that situation. I know they had to give him 8 injections along with, like you mentioned, resetting his nose. So thank God he's still with Kendall. But he'll be fine. But again, I just think that it's a combination, and I think he's got to just put it out his head. I know he talked to Richard Hamilton from the former Detroit Pistons star, who actually just wore the mask all day, every day, because it was just comfort to him. And I think he'll be fine. I mean, don't be surprised if he ditched the mask for Game 4, if he's feeling better. And again, just goes with it. But I think more Pat Beverly, less mask is the issue.
See, I'm not so willing to say that the mask didn't play a big role in the way Devin Booker was playing last night, because okay, so for me, I used to be the type of person where I couldn't go to an audition without wearing my special ring. I had a butterfly ring that I wore every day for like 10 years, and I had never done a single shoot or an audition or anything without that ring. So anytime you change it up, suddenly you're kind of off your game a little bit. So I can imagine being out on the court with this big plastic shield over your face. It must just be a little disorienting. Even if he can see fine, having something pressing up on your face like that when so much of the game relies on like you being able to just like see and move quickly and kind of like have a clear mind, I can imagine that it probably did affect his game. That being said, what you're saying about Pat Bev makes 100% sense, but I just think that the mask probably did impact it a little bit more. Let's move on to our next post up. Let's talk about LeBron James, because we know him as an NBA star. We know him as a music producer, an entertainment industry mogul, and apparently now a golfer. His high school teammate Romeo Travis tweeted, "I need a golf coach in Akron." And LeBron answered saying, "Let's go together when I come home. Want to learn too." So LeBron's going to be picking up some golf, but of course there has to be all the conspiracy theorists on Twitter, and they're saying this is a sign LeBron's retiring. A lot of the reactions on Twitter were saying like, "Oh, bro, getting ready for retirement," because golf is a favorite activity of retirees. So they were thinking that this is a sign of his future because he simply wants to learn how to play golf. Now, I have a comment to make about this, but Kevin, do you think this is an indication that LeBron is planning his future retirement?
I tell you, man, people follow LeBron's every move. And LeBron had a porterhouse steak. Oh, LeBron, that steak. Why you not a vegan? It's so many things. No, this is not retirement. Listen, LeBron, we know one thing, is a great teammate. High school teammate. They probably guys continue to speak. Probably somebody he doesn't get a chance to see all the time. And he responds. He's got a lot of free time. He hasn't had this type of free time, I don't know, last 11 years. So he's got time, and he's using social media, and he's active on it. So no, it's just like it's an opportunity to go bond with a friend and speak on it. But everybody wow. Imagine being LeBron, Devin, and having everything you do dissected, every little thing you do. Hey, you comb your hair. Oh, LeBron, he's trying to, his hairline's messed up. Or if you wore a blue shirt. Oh, LeBron, you must want to go play with the Knicks because you're wearing a blue shirt. I mean, everything he does is so dissected. So no, this is nothing. This is just a lot to do with a lot of people who have a lot of free time on their hands.
I'm with you 100%, Kevin, especially because if we were using that same logic, then Steph Curry would be way deep in his retirement planning, because that guy loves to golf. He is always golfing, and Steph Curry is nowhere near to retiring. I can tell you all that much.
Exactly.
So no, LeBron is not planning his retirement with golfing. And what you said too about every move that he does being dissected, I don't know how LeBron handles that kind of attention and that kind of constant like criticism and negativity. I am so sensitive, as you guys know. I would never be able to handle that. Let's move on to our next post up. We got to talk about Dame Lillard, because he is taking no days off. He's actually already back in training. He posted 2 videos on his Instagram, one of him running on the beach, as you can see here. It looks so peaceful, by the way. This must have been at like 5:30 in the morning, because there's nobody out there, and it just looks so nice and peaceful. And then another video of him boxing. Look at this. He's looking pretty good. Getting back to work, wasting no time. And then he actually captioned these videos writing, "Good afternoon, may the next season be my best season." So he's already gearing up to have his best season ever. I think it's exciting. We want to see Dame have his best season ever. I think that best season ever is going to happen somewhere away from Portland. But Kevin, do you think that it's time that this is a good mentality for him to have? Do you think that Dame should have taken a little bit more time to rest, or are you glad to see that he's already back to work training?
I love it. I love it. I love it. Again, this is an alpha mentality. You know what? The season didn't end the way we want it. If wherever he goes, we won't get onto that situation now, but I love it as an athlete to say, you know what? In order to be the best, I got to be the best. You know, I got to train harder. I got to do different things. And Dame, you know, again, going back to our conversation earlier about, you know, top 3 players, he's in that situation. He's close, you know, with Steph Curry and those guys. That's why I couldn't really name a third. But no, I love this situation. What I see with Dame Lillard is telling people and putting people on notice that, hey, I'm coming, I'm hunting for bear, whether it's in Portland, you know, black and red, or Knicks blue and orange. I'm coming to hunt for bear, and I'm going to be ready for the next season. I love it.
I love it too. And then before we get into the next topic, I just want to ask, do you agree with Jackie and I when we say we would love to see Dame lose his loyalty to the Trailblazers and move on to a different team? Or do you appreciate that he stays committed to Portland?
No, I like to see him in blue and orange. That's why I slipped that in there previously. Yeah, I want to see him in the Knicks. But I can't knock him for that. He's a throwback. And again, you know, in a different era when, you know, players didn't have the leverage, guys stuck around with one team. I respect the guys like LeBron and other guys, KD, who control their own destiny. They have that right. But there's also something to be said for a gentleman that is loyal to the team that drafted him. While there is no loyalty in sports, I get that. There's something to be said for a guy that says, you know what, I'm comfortable here, I'm happy. But I think it's time for him to make a move. I would love to, again, like I said, I'm saying it again, I would love to see him on Broadway. I think he deserves to play in New York. I think the Lakers would be a great fit too. I just don't see Portland, you know, dancing with LA on a trade for Dame Lillard. I don't think that's going to happen at all.
Probably not, but I can dream, and I would love to see that too. I think Dame would be an amazing addition to the Lakers. I would love to see that happen so much, but yeah, probably not going to happen. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the WNBA, because a lot of the conversations that we've had about the WNBA have been about how they don't get enough attention, they don't get enough marketing money, they don't have enough viewership, and it definitely starts to show and affect the players, especially in what goes on when they're not on the court. So the WNBA Players Association decided to call out the league for booking economy flights for the athletes, which is kind of crazy to consider because they are very, very tall women. I'm 5'2", and even for me, sitting in an economy seat on a plane, I do it all the time because I'm not bougie enough to be flying first class yet, but for me, sitting in those small seats is uncomfortable, and I don't even have long legs. On the flip side, NBA players fly private. They have all the leg room in the world, which makes sense because there is so much money in the NBA. But the WNBA tweeted, "This is what happens when you're booked an economy 5 out of 5 flights. This is no way to bet on women." And then as you can see here, the airline, they tagged a bunch of airlines and that said, "Can you help us out for the 25th anniversary season?" So I want to put this out there. I understand why WNBA players are not flying private. Like I said, there's just less money available in that league, and that would be a really big expense. It makes sense for NBA players because they just have a lot more available to them in terms of what they can spend. But these ladies do deserve to be comfortable, and I think that at the very least, they deserve a first-class seat so that they're not crammed, especially when they're just so tall. Do you agree with me when I say that, Kevin?
This is an embarrassment to the NBA. First and foremost, these are professional athletes. These are high-tuned professional athletes. If you're not going to give them private, and I understand that maybe it's an issue that a first-class ticket, I think, is not too much to ask for. You know, again, if you're not going to treat these athletes right, if you're not going to give them the proper travel and proper hotel stays, then why have the league? Like, why do this league if you're not going to do it the right way? How can the talent on the floor, the product on the floor be great if they're traveling cross country sometimes and being like a pretzel. It's an embarrassment to the NBA. They need to be exposed for it. And if you're not going to do the right thing, don't have the league. Don't go half in with something and then step back. We all know the WNBA has a revenue problem. I get that. But traveling, the NBA's got enough sponsor opportunities where they can put these ladies on private if they really wanted to. They don't want to. And it's embarrassing and it's disrespectful and it needs to stop.
I agree with that 1,000%. It is very embarrassing, especially because we saw the conditions that they were given when they were in the WNBA bubble. Terrible, especially in comparison to the NBA. And the NBA didn't even have the best of the best available to them during that time either. Let's get into some of the reactions, Leo. There were people online who were responding to this tweet by the WNBPA, and they were writing, "Same old story. Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Teams, you can do better by these world-class athletes. Why are coaches in first class and players in back? Moms raised y'all better. Hashtag invest in women." That's 1,000% true. And also, if they're going to force the players to fly economy, coaches should be sitting right beside them too. No coach should be sitting first class. That's super unfair. And then this person tweeted, "This is ridiculous. Maybe NBA players could show actual support for the WNBA by including in their negotiations a requirement that the NBA owners invest more in the WNBA. Or maybe one of these players making a $70 million contract could say, heck, I'll charter the planes. KD, LeBron, Steph." Now, I think it's a little unfair to say a single player in the NBA should be the one responsible for chartering the planes for WNBA players. Yes, it would be an amazing, generous gesture, but I think that the problem and the solution needs to come from the WNBA itself. But let's move on, because KD actually did show his support for the WNBA. So this is our next post-up story. This is a photo of him showing his support to the Liberty. And there have been a lot of NBA players that have shown their support for WNBA teams. We know Kobe was a huge supporter of the WNBA, so I think it's great, and I really appreciate that. Let's get into this next post up, because I'm not a gamer. I don't know really the details behind all of this, but Curran Banker pulled up in some Spartan armor, and I guess for those of you who game and who are into that kind of stuff, this might be kind of cool, but there were a lot of reactions on Twitter that were very unimpressed. Leo, let's show the video. Okay, cool. I like the car. I'm not really, I don't understand. Let's show the tweets, Leo. If there's tweets, there should be some tweets. I thought I put some tweets in there, but if I didn't, maybe I still have them here. I don't. Anyway, people were like, I don't really understand what's so cool about this. Like, he just looks like a nerd that just came out of Comic-Con. Somebody wrote, Bankert has a Porsche. He's going to spend his entire yearly salary before the season even starts. What about this makes it legendary? LOL, is it cool? Yes, but legendary? Dudes just like this at E3 all the time. And then, how is this legendary? All he's done is rock up to training like he's just got back from Comic-Con. Weird. Yeah, so honestly, I don't get it. Are you impressed, Kevin?
No. And on the flip side, Curran Banker, the pride of University of Virginia, get a life. You won't even make camp. So I hope you enjoy this 15 minutes of fame, because it certainly won't be for your football career. Go call the Rock and go play in the XFL with that mess. That's ridiculous. No. It's just ridiculous. It's like, come on, enough already. That really Porsche is his whole salary. Yeah, say it with your chest, and I'm gonna say it with my chest. It's ridiculous. You won't even make the squad.
Oh God, it is. I wonder how much that costume cost. I certainly would not be spending my money on that. Okay, let's get into our final post up, you guys. This one's very impressive. We always like to end the post up with a little bit of like a weird, cool talent here. This guy made a Rubik's Cube art of Saquon Barkley. Leo, let's play it. manage to do this? Like, how do you even know that this is something that can be done? I would never even think to make Rubik's Cube art out of anybody. So the fact that he was able to conceptualize this and make it look so awesome is really cool. Kevin, do you have any special talents, any unique skills?
I can shave my head in the morning without cutting it. I can, not nothing like this. This is really cool. This was ultra cool. This is something that, I'm sure he can put on an auction block and make a lot of money. He got the detail great, but no, it isn't. I mean, like I said, I can barely chew and talk at the same time. So, no, as long as I can shave without cutting myself, that's the only talent I'm comfortable and happy with.
All right. Well, very impressive, Kevin. I love that for you. I also don't have any special talents like that. Nothing even remotely cool enough to post on TikTok. So very, very cool for that guy. Shout out to that artist. Very impressive. And now, you guys, the time has come for Fan or Foe.
It's Fan or Foe.
All right, you guys, we have collected your comments, clapbacks, and questions from throughout the week, and we are going to address them right now. Let's get started, Leo. Let's throw the first one up there. Ooh, love this one. The Fumble is all women who know nothing about basketball unless it's women basketball. Keep quiet and stop acting like you know what you're talking about. Kevin, how does it feel to be a woman on this show?
Well, yeah, he was wrong on that one. I'm certainly not Joanna, man, but listen, women are a lot of women, and you guys, you and Jackie do a great job, and a lot of women in sports do a great job. That's a sexist comment and doesn't even need a response.
So dumb. Honestly, it's ridiculous. I have to imagine that the person writing these kinds of comments, because we get these quite a bit, they're like 12-year-olds. Mm-hmm. They just don't understand that you don't have to be a man to talk about men's basketball. And understanding a basketball game is not that hard. You don't have. It's not.
I really think they want your. Huh? They really want your attention. It's just these are a lot of pinked up men who don't know how to communicate to women, and this is their way of doing the 12th grade, the 10th grade, 11th grade thing, and they don't know how to talk to women. So listen, if you want to get to know Jackie and Devin, be nice, communicate the right way, helpful.
We appreciate nice people. Okay, let's get into the next one. My Glock says, bro, it's Bucks and 7. Why y'all tripping after one game? Kevin, what do you have to say to that? Bucks and 7?
Well, again, I mean, I'm not opposed to the Bucks, and and Glock is right. It is one game, but it's just something that I see in Atlanta that I'm not seeing in Milwaukee. I'm seeing Atlanta playing with a lot of passion, very similar to Phoenix, a young team that's never been in before. Almost reminds me of the NCAA tournament, like a team just getting on a roll, and Trae Young is having a coming out party, and I just not seeing that same passion with Milwaukee. They're a great team, and they really should win the series based off, talent. But the game's not played on paper. The game is played on the hardwood, and right now Atlanta's winning.
Yeah, I think Trae especially just has this intense desire. He's just playing. He's a very spunky player. He's a lot of fun to watch, and I think that he's really embracing this moment. And one thing that we always talk about with Giannis is that, he goes out there and he does what he does, but he doesn't really take the initiative. And even in post-game interviews, he has that kind of relaxed sort of demeanor where it seems like he's not really feeling the intensity here. And I think with Trae, you can, just by watching him, you feel that passion and you feel that fire in him. So I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to be as simple as Bucks and 7. I think that we could see a lot of things happen. Let's get into the next one. Warriors fan, Jackie Ray, love you guys, but I pissed. I wish I remembered what this one was about. Maybe our producer in the chat will remind me. I cannot remember what she said that pissed off Warriors fan.
I do.
You remember? It was when she called the Suns the new Warriors, right?
No, the Hawks. She called the Hawks the new Warriors, yes. Yes,
okay, thank you for that. We knew she was going to be pissing off Stay Mad. We knew she was going to be pissing off Warriors fans. So sorry about it. She's not even here to defend herself, but, I'll do it for her. Let's get into the next one. Okay, Suleiman says, I know this is random, so I'm going to say this right now. If the Kansas City Chiefs do not make the Super Bowl in 2022, the GOAT talk is over between him and Brady because there's nothing to talk about. Honestly, I agree. If the Chiefs are not in the Super Bowl, I feel like even if they don't win the Super Bowl in 2022, Patrick Mahomes is just not going to be able to compete. Yes, he's a stellar player, but when it comes to Tom Brady, to me, Tom Brady's still untouchable. How do you feel about that, Kevin?
I totally agree. And it's not about getting it. They got to win it. You know, there's no brownie points for getting the Super Bowl. You got to win it. So, yeah, if you want to have that conversation and be top of the food chain, you got to produce. So, yeah, it's an important year for the Chiefs.
And I know Jackie felt that this past Super Bowl with the Chiefs losing was just a sign exactly that Patrick Mahomes is not Tom Brady and can't compete with Tom Brady. So Jackie thinks his window's already passed. And honestly, I'd have to agree, but I guess my mind could be changed if the 2022 Super Bowl played out a little bit differently. Let's move on to the next one. Brandon says they should take it easy on Ben, but it's funny how all the 76ers first picks had shooting problems these past years. I do not think we should take it easy on Ben. I don't think so. I think Ben needs this. Do you have anything you want to add before I move on?
No, I totally agree with you. Obviously, listen, Ben Simmons is a professional athlete. And again, my grandmother should not be able to shoot better foul shots than Ben Simmons. That's a travesty. And again, like I said, these are pro athletes. And again, they you know, I'm not putting things to money. Please don't take that thought. But these are highly compensated professional athletes. If Devin, you came on this show and didn't do what you need to do, you wouldn't be here. You do a great job and you're rewarded for that. He's got to make plays, and he's got to do what he's got to do. And, you know, I think criticism comes with the territory.
I agree. Ben needs to step it up. Let's get into the next one. Marcus says, love this show, always watch, but never comment. Love you, Marcus. I'm putting you in contention for fan of the week. Let's move on to the next one. Suleiman says, how do you guys feel about the NBA players that's playing in the Summer Olympics? I got to speed through it, but I think that they've made some good picks here. We've got who do we have? Dame that's playing. We've got Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Jason Tatum. So I think that it's
Middleton.
a good squad. Yeah, it's a good squad. Let's move on to the next one. Michael Mindruff says, it's funny if the Clippers had Kawhi Leonard in these two games, they would have been up 2-0. Do you agree with that, Kevin?
I mean, again, he's a top talent, and I can't knock that, but he's not playing. So I don't believe in hyperbole. He's not playing, and that's just the case. So they're 2-1.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Next comment. Jeremy says, a person with an 85% free throws, you should be able to splash those, especially when it comes down to winning or losing. That's about Ben Simmons. Yeah, I agree. Let's move on. Steinfeld with confidence says, I will never take woman takes in a man basketball game seriously. Okay, then I don't know why you're even here because it's two women hosting this show. So if you can't take it seriously, you can go watch First Take or something. I don't know. Let's move on.
Go watch Seinfeld.
Yeah, go watch. Actually, I do love Seinfeld. Love Seinfeld. Bobby Digital says, almost brought a tear to my eye when I heard the Caruso news. Felt like a proud older brother. Alex Caruso getting caught with some weed. People are really loving it. I guess I'm proud of him too. He's relaxing. That's a good thing.
Got street cred.
Yeah. Let's get into the next one. Damian Barnes says, way off P or pandemic P is not a superstar. He's just an all-star that folds under pressure. I think that I don't agree with this one. Yes, we did see pandemic P. We know he was going through a lot of mental health issues then, but I think he's definitely redeemed himself now. I don't see him folding under pressure. What's your thoughts on this one, Kevin?
Well, again, I don't throw the word superstar around lightly. I don't think he's a superstar. I think he's a very good player. I think, again, yes, he has had his moments. We've seen that in game 2. He had a decent game last night, not a great game. But, again, I think he's working through it. I think he's a solid player. And with the Clippers having a nice little supporting cast of talent, it makes it a little bit easier for Paul George to move around and play.
Let's get into the next one. Since we're running short on time here, only a couple minutes. minutes left. Titus says, and I'm quite sure if Kobe was here, he would say the same thing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have mentored him. I agree with this 1,000%. This is about Devin Booker and the Kobe comparisons. I think Kobe would have loved to see what D-Book's doing right now. Moving on, next comment. Courtney Pickett says, Tristan Thompson is messy. Chloe got exactly what she deserves. I don't want to say that anybody deserves that kind of treatment, but Tristan Thompson is a giant mess. The guy literally cannot control himself. I feel bad for Chloe because I think she wanted to find love and believe in him, but she should have known. That's what I say. Once a cheater, always a cheater. If he's going to cheat on you, you got to walk away. Don't expect him to be different. Tristan Thompson has proven time and time again he is the same guy. Always been. Moving on. Gary Turbo says Tom Brady is worse than the Paul brothers. No, I can't even say that. And I've had my times where I hate Tom Brady, but the Paul brothers are far worse than Tom Brady. I like Tom Brady. Tampa Bay Tom's great. What do you think about this one?
Well, listen, I'm a bad Jet fan. I can't like Tom Brady. I'm sorry. I don't care if he's wearing pewter right now. But this is actually a funny situation. Tom has come out of his shell, and he's been, but hey, he can do that. He won a Super Bowl, so he can speak on it. So Tampa Tom is much more cooler, but I'm sorry, he's still that Boston thorn in my side that I can't get over.
So you are willing to say that he is worse than the Paul brothers? That's outrageous.
I won't go that far, Devin. I won't go that far. But, he could be a little annoying with his new videos. I'm like, Tom, just go back to the Belichick style. Play on Sundays, and let's not hear from you in the offseason. I like that Tom better.
I like Tampa Bay Tom.
That's just me. Let's
move on. Let's see what's coming up next. Mike Locke says, Simmons is a great athlete, but what the hell are you doing scoring 5 points and not taking a wide open dunk? That's the question that we all have. Nobody knows what's wrong with him. That wide open dunk was just honestly insane that he didn't attempt that. Like that solidifies to me that there is something really deep going on with him that he needs to sort out right away. Let's move on to the next comment. Adam Hecker says, I got Trae Young and his tumbleweed hair winning it all. Who did you say you thought was going to be winning the championship? You said the Suns, right?
I have the Suns and the Hawks in the finals with the Suns win the championship, yes. And I'm not going to have any conversations about Trae Young's hair. I'm not going to do it.
I know. I don't like the Trae Young hair slander. I think it's rude. Okay, getting into the next one. Kuz is on his way to the CBA with Ben, and then the Chinese Basketball Association. Ben for sure is. Kuz maybe. Kuz might have one more year left in him. Who knows? Off to Shanghai. All right, well, that was the last one, you guys. We are going to wrap up the show for the day. Kevin, thank you so much for being here. It was lovely having you. You were so much fun, and we cannot wait to talk with you some more whenever either of us needs another day off. We appreciate you coming on here and helping us out. Make sure you guys follow Kevin on all social media at 950kev. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, tap the bell for notifications, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. And we will see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
Take care.